Okay, so today's job is to set the ignition timing on the Bullet. The first task we need to do is find top dead centre on the engine. In order to do that, I've put the bike in 4th gear and I've lifted the rear wheel off the bench so that when I turn the rear wheel it will turn the engine. It doesn't appear to be in gear. There we go, so that's in 4th. So when I turn the rear wheel, it'll turn the gearbox, turn the clutch, turn the primary and move the piston up and down. I've also inserted the top dead centre gauge, which will give me an idea of when it's at top dead centre. This isn't the best way to do this job. The best way would be to attach a degree wheel to the crank and insert a dead stop tool in the spark plug hole so that the piston comes up against the dead stop when it's rotated. So what you do is you put the degree wheel on, find the dead stop and read the degrees off the degree wheel. Then you rotate it the other way and until it hits the dead stop and see where your degrees are there. Take the difference between the two so that you can rotate the degree wheel so that both dead stops read the same either side of 360 degrees. They read the same number of degrees beyond 360. That'll put your top dead centre at 0 degrees. So say I put it on and my dead stop was at 20 degrees on one side and 350 degrees on the other side. I would want to rotate it so that it was at 15 degrees and 355, and that would mean 0 was bang in the middle. I can't find my dead stop tool at the moment, so I'm going to use this and I'm going to rotate the engine and feel the point where top dead centre is. Okay, so the engine's in gear. I've made sure I'm on the compression stroke. So what I'm going to do now is rotate the back wheel a little at a time, and the piston will push this gauge up and down. So you can see it's going down there, and as I rotate the back wheel a little you can see the piston moving up, 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 hits top dead centre and then moves down. So what I'm looking for is that exact top dead centre point. I find that if you just tap the rear wheel slightly, it moves it into the right position, and having a finger on it gives you much more of a feel for what's happening, because there is a point where it almost pauses at top dead centre. And what tends to happen is the piston does want to go over centre. So getting it to stop at exactly TDC is tricky, but I think that's it there. So that's me got my engine set at top dead centre. And if we go round to the other side of the engine, we can see on the cams, the 2 dots on the cams are lined up with the engine in top dead centre position. So that's telling us we're in top dead centre on the compression stroke. There's too much rotation here to just use these dots to find top dead centre. It's just a little bit too imprecise. So, but that's confirming what I'm seeing at the other side of the bike. Just a word on these screw-in gauges that you screw into the cylinder head. They're useful, but they are quite an imprecise measure. You can see it's got a millimetre scale on here. Now when we're trying to set a fully retarded timing of 0.8 millimetres, it's not really accurate enough a scale to do that. You could argue for a long time about whether or not the fact that it's hitting the piston at an angle is actually giving us an accurate vertical reading as well. You do get ones which you can screw in with a dial gauge indicator, which would be a lot more precise in that respect. It's probably better to use a degree wheel if you can. This will get you in the right ballpark, and for a completely standard bullet, you're close enough. If you've been tuning, you maybe want it a bit more accurate than this sort of crude object's going to give you. But it will certainly get us in the correct ballpark to get the timing set. You should be able to get the engine running and then tweak things from there. Okay, so I've rigged a fairly basic degree wheel onto the end of the crank here. You don't need any particularly fancy equipment. I've printed this degree wheel out. You can download degree wheel patterns on the internet quite easily. I've just made a pointer using a piece of copper wire trapped under one of these bolts, and I've set that to read at 0 degrees. Ideally, get the pointer as close as possible to the degree wheel, then you don't get parallax error. You can't change the reading by moving your head from one side to the other. So engine is at top dead centre. I've got my degree wheel set to 0. So we're in a good position now to set the timing to the point we want it. I'll add that I found a nice strong magnet is perfectly sufficient to hold that degree wheel in place while you're carrying out these proceedings. There's no load on it. It stays in one place as long as you don't nudge or interfere with them in any way. A magnet will hold it quite neatly on the end of the timing pinion. My next job is to set the ignition advance into the fully advanced position. So I want to rotate the points cam into the fully advanced position and lock it there, because I want to set the timing from the fully advanced point. In order to do that, I'm going to use this dishwasher that I bought from Hitchcock's Motorcycles. So I need to take the centre bolt out, rotate the advance into the fully advanced position, and then lock that down in position. I find this quite a fiddle. My fingers aren't quite strong enough to grip it, especially with the upgraded springs on the advanced retard mechanism. So I'm afraid I do grab the points cam with a set of needle nose pliers, which I shouldn't do, but I'm not applying any great deal of force to it. So yeah, I think to get away with it, it's not visibly marking it. So we want the concave section facing the points cam when that goes in, and we'll see if we can do this. Okay, that's it rotated up against the stop, so that's in the fully advanced position, and when I lock this down it should stay there. Okay, so that's my points cam rotated into the fully advanced position. I now need to set it so that the engine will spark at 32 degrees before top dead centre, or on the, if I move you, on the gauge, 8mm before top dead centre. Okay, so now I need to rotate the engine to 32 degrees before top dead centre. As we mentioned before, there is quite a lot of backlash in this system, so we need to approach top dead centre with the engine rotating forwards. So what I will do first is turn the engine backwards a reasonable way, and then I'll rotate it forwards until I hit that 32 degree point. And if we overshoot, we need to go back and start again. So we just approach it dead slow. And I'm pretty sure that's a little bit more, just a touch, a hair. Maybe a little bit more. I'd call that 32.5. That's probably gone too far, has it? Let's go with that. That looks bang on 32 degrees. So what we need now is the points should be opening with the engine in this position, and we should be on for our timing, but we will check. Okay, so with our cam locked in the fully advanced position, engine is sitting at 32 degrees before top dead centre. What I now need to do is rotate the points backing plate until the points just start to open at this point. Now I find the easiest way to do this is to loosen these nuts slightly. On most Enfields this will be a bolt, a set screw, not a nut. And then what I can do is gently insert a screwdriver into this slot and lever one way or the other against the screw, which will rotate the points backing plate and will rotate the points. I'm going to do this with the ignition on. You can watch the ammeter to see it dip, then come back up, or you can actually see and hear the spark jumping the points gap. So I will back this off slightly. You don't want it too loose, because then it can flap about, and when you bolt it back down it's in a different position. Visually the points are open at the moment. If I turn it that way it's opening it further, so I want to rotate it this way. I can see them just starting to close. That's one problem, if you go too far you can't get your screwdriver in. Okay. I'll see where the ammeter is at this point. Okay, it's at 0. Now I may have set this wrong. So I probably don't have enough adjustment on this to set the timing where I want. Yeah, it would appear so. So my positioning earlier was incorrect. What I should, however, be able to do is using that trick of rotating the points drive pinion by removing one of the idler gears. I should be able to get myself more adjustment on this. So I'm going to set this back towards the centre again, and I'm going to go round the other side and rotate the points. This is where you get the 3D puzzles. I need to move it one tooth anti-clockwise. So I'll do that now. So I'm on this side, I'm taking the idler gear out, and we'll turn it one tooth anti-clockwise. And put the idler gear back in. And that should give me more adjustment here. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, that is most definitely closed now. But will it open? Yes, it will. So, ignition on. Ammeter's dipped this time. That's a little bit too loose. Okay, so I'm just going to very gently nudge this round until we get a spark. There we are, one spark. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rotate the engine backwards by a reasonable degree so that we don't have that backlash issue again, and I'm going to slowly rotate it forwards until a spark jumps the gap, and then I'm going to check on my degree wheel where that spark happened. So we'll come backwards, 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 and then rotate forwards. And I'm watching the ammeter as I do this. Because it should pop back up at the exact point that the spark happens. Just there. So that's the exact point I saw my ammeter pop back up. So I'm going to go around and check the other side now and see if we're still at 32 degrees. As you can see, that's actually at 30 degrees where the spark has happened. So I need to nudge that slightly. This is just in the, I find from this point what you're best to do is a little bit of trial and error and just nudge that backing plate slightly and see where you land up. So what I'll do is I'll go back, rotate the backing plate and finesse this until it's making the spark at 32 degrees. Okay, so I've finessed that very slightly and I'm going to rotate the engine now and see when the spark happens. Okay, I missed it. So we'll go back and we'll come forwards. That was a spark. So let's see where we are. I've turned it the wrong way. I'm quite good at getting myself mixed up. But because we're measuring things, that's all good. Okay, going to turn it back again. Ammeter's dipped. Rotating forwards. Just a tiny bit at a time. That was a spark. Let's see where we're at. No, I turned it more the wrong way. See, I wouldn't be very good at these 3D orientation puzzles. Let's try it there. Again, rotate back. Ammeter's dipped. I'm just watching the ammeter for its, and I'm listening for the spark snapping. There we go. That looks very close indeed. I think I've overshot by a tiny smidgen. So we'll move it back again and rinse and repeat. Okay, right, I'm going to call this close enough for government work. That looks like 32 degrees. I've locked the points backing plate down now, and I'm just going to check it one more time to make sure that's sparking at the right point. So again, the ignition on, we'll rotate backwards to take up the backlash, and we'll turn it forwards until we see the ammeter pop back up. check. Okay, that's overreading slightly, but I may have over-rotated the engine as I was coming up to the points opening. We'll just try that again. But it's always a hazard in that when you tighten the backing plate down, it can move further. It can change the adjustment. Yeah, you see I'm too far advanced now. So I need to go back and move it again to take up the fidgeting that tightening the backing plate's done. Right, I'm going to call that close enough for government work. The added fiddle is you think you've got it right, then you tighten down the backing plate fully and it moves a little bit, and you have to finesse it again, but I think that's just about the right point. Now I'm going to do a couple of double checks for idiot proofness. One of them is to make sure that my top dead centre point is still correct, so make sure none of this has moved while I've been fiddling. So I'm going to just rotate the engine and try and stop it at top dead centre, which, as has been pointed out, isn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. Yeah. It doesn't matter about backlash when you're finding the top dead centre point. You can move it back and forth over top dead centre till you're happy that you're in the right place. Not too far, because the degree wheel is attached directly to the crank. It's very tricky to get it to just sit exactly on top dead centre. I think that's pretty close, so we should check to see if this is at 0 degrees. And it doesn't appear to be, so we may have moved something. I will just double check that again. Let's see what we're looking like. No, that's it. Okay, so I'm happy that that's at 32 degrees before top dead centre. Now what I'm going to do is release the advanced retard mechanism and see where the spark is. That should come at 10 degrees. So I'm going to undo the centre nut bolt on the distributor, and that's everything pinged back to where it was. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to move up towards top dead centre and see where the spark is. It should be 10 degrees. This is much harder to stop at, which is why I set it fully advanced. There. Moment of truth. Oh, that's looking very nice. Okay, so next thing is let's rotate the engine fully round and see if it stops at the same place again. So that's one rotation. There's the valves. Right, and let's walk it in to the spark point. Should be at 10 degrees again. There's the spark. I think that's pretty close. We'll just double check that again. up, up, up. Spark. I'm going to call that close enough for government work. What I will do is I'll just recheck the advanced timing point as well. Just make sure that's where we want it. Okay, we talked about this measuring tool, how it can be quite inaccurate. The other thing is this engine has a long stroke crank. So whilst a standard bullet, the fully retarded timing point should be 0.8mm before top dead centre, and the fully advanced should be 8mm before top dead centre. I don't think it's going to be the same on mine, so let's see where it is. I did set it up using this last time, which explains why I didn't have the timing very right and why I'm fiddling with this now. So we have 27.5mm on this scale at top dead centre. I'm going to rotate that to 10mm before top dead centre. Okay, that's the crank exactly at 10mm before 10 degrees before top dead centre, and we had it at 28.5, and it's now closer to 30, just below 30, so nearly a full millimetre, or just over a full millimetre. Okay, now I'm going to take it to 32 degrees, which will give me my more interesting and useful fully advanced point, which is where I really set the points at. Okay, that's exactly 32 degrees. And this scale is reading it's reading 40.5. So we've come from 28.5 to 40.5, so 28.5, 30.5, 38.5, sorry, 40.5, so that's 12.5, no, 12, yeah, 12 millimetres before top dead centre. So I know now that to set my timing point at fully advanced, I should be setting it at 12.5 millimetres before top dead centre to get the same reading in degrees, which is interesting. So that's been a very interesting exercise, in that me being a bit of a numbskull hadn't accounted for the fact that the long stroke crank would, through the piston further, move it more for the same number of degrees. So I've been running this with the ignition 44 retarded, which would explain a lot of the difficulties I've been having getting it to run properly. So hopefully we're something about right. What I should do is check the dynamic timing, but this is close enough to be getting the engine running and see how we're getting on. So I'm going to reassemble it now and run it. What I should do is actually put a degree wheel on this end of the crank so I can watch it running and put a strobe light on to just double check that timing is where I want it and that the advanced retard is working properly. But that's the static timing set now. We can be happy that that's pretty accurate using a degree wheel, and it gives a point for further improvement.